welcome to the video. It's Saturday, June 26th, and we're breaking down this 10-game early slate that we have over on DraftKings today. If you find this video helpful in any way possible, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I do cover other sports too, so if you guys want to play some NASCAR DFS today, I'll be going live on my channel around 12 or 1 p.m. Eastern because there's a race today, and we actually have a doubleheader, so there is 2 races this weekend, so if you want to try it out, feel free to do just that. And if you want to follow me over on social media, you can do so using the handles in the bottom corner of your screen. And if you want to help support the channel over on Patreon, link is down below for that. And since it's the end of the month, if you do sign up and continue your patronage throughout July, I can give you a refund for this last week, so you can get this last week of content for free, and then you get next month as well. So if you want to check it out, link is down below if you want to join the community. But I think that's it for the plug, so without further ado, let's dive into today's video. As per usual, we'll start with the pitchers and move on to the bats. And today's kind of a weird slate where there's not a lot of things that stand out to me. Obviously, the Blue Jays versus the Orioles with their team total above 6 is probably the most obvious thing in the world today. But outside of those guys, nothing that's really like too standing out to me. Obviously, we have Jacob deGrom here, but the thing is, his pitch count's just been so low. It's kind of hard to pay $11,500 for him. But even then, with a low pitch count, he's still getting in the 20s points-wise. I remember the one time he only went 3 innings, but then he strike out 8 and score like 25 fantasy points where he still was like the best pitcher of the day. So it's kind of hard to decide what to do with Jacob deGrom here. But he's very expensive. We know he's the best pitcher in baseball. It's a measly 2.31 implied team total here for the Phillies. 70% chance for a win, 9K prop. So we'll see how deep into the game he goes. I mean, we've seen him around 50, 70 pitches sometimes. I mean, but even then, his strikeout rate is just so good this season. He's got a .5 ERA, 1.59 xFIP, 1.6 ERA, 47% K rate, over 14.5 Ks per 9, and only 1.3 walks per 9, 113 batting average given up, less than a 100 ISO, and just some video game numbers all around. Like, there's nothing bad here to talk about with Jacob deGrom, less than half a homer per 9. I don't care about the matchup versus Philly. Yes, there's some good bats in the lineup, but who cares? It's Jacob deGrom. He's pretty much unhittable for the most part, so if you want to roster him, I know he's not going to go super deep into the game, but if you can get 4 to 5 innings out of here and he strikes out 10 plus, I would not be surprised. So I think he's definitely still your SP1 on the slate. Then dropping down to Lance Lynn, $9,600. I could see him being pretty popular just because of the nice matchup here versus Seattle. We saw Carlos Rodon like 80% owned yesterday. Now it's obviously a different slate. There's different pitchers here that you could always go with Jacob deGrom or Adam Wainwright. So he's not the most obvious option like he was, like his teammate Carlos Rodon was yesterday. But Lance Lynn's still been pretty darn good this year, and I always like using pitchers versus Seattle. Only a 3.3 implied team total against him. Pretty heavy favorite, 6.5K prop. And looking at his numbers this season, obviously compared to Jacob deGrom, they're not going to look as impressive, but they're still pretty good. Like, if you just pretend Jacob deGrom was not here, a 2.1 ERA, 3.8 xFIP, 3.6 ERA, 28% K rate, batting average less than 200 given up, and only a 119 ISO looks pretty darn good. So I like the spot here for Lance Lynn. The Mariners this season versus righties, they've been a little bit better versus righties than they have versus lefties, but still striking out over 26% of the time. OBP below 300 and an 89 WRC plus. So I think he should be just fine here. And he's almost $2,000 cheaper than Jacob deGrom. Plus, he won't have a short leash. Can typically go around 100 pitches per game. Then Adam Wainwright, $9,100 coming off a game where he was absolutely dominant. Had around 38 points in that game against a soft matchup here versus Pittsburgh. They're a team that just virtually has zero power this season. They don't really strike out too much, but their power is pretty much non-existent. And looking at his numbers this season, kind of pitching exactly how he should be in terms of his ERA, xFIP, and SIERA, all around like 3.75, 3.8, 23.5% K rate. Gets a lot of ground balls, not a lot of hard contact given up, about a homer per 9. I think he should be just fine in this matchup versus Pittsburgh. So far this season, only a 121 team ISO. Like I said, not striking out much, only around 22%, but 83 WRC plus, below 290. I think Wainwright is just fine in this matchup, but if I had to pick between him and Lance Lynn, I'm going to side with Lance Lynn today, but you could obviously always play both. Then Ryu, $8,200 getting into these SP2s. Kind of iffy plays for the most part, but the Orioles this season versus lefties, I do have some guys that have some pop, but the team total is below 4 here. I'm pretty sure Ryu's going to pick up the win as long as he can go 5+ innings because the Blue Jays should be able to absolutely smash Keegan Aiken. Last time he pitched, he got destroyed by the Houston Astros, and I would not be surprised if that happens once again here with the Toronto Blue Jays. They've been hitting the ball very, very well recently, and they just keep getting good matchups. But Ryu in the season, while it's not like awesome numbers, he's been okay. He's got a nice 3.2 ERA, 3.7 xFIP, 3.9 SIERA, 21% K rate, doesn't really walk too many guys, gets a lot of ground balls, limits the hard contact. Kind of a boring pitcher. Like, he's a good real-life pitcher, but for DFS purposes, not really too exciting. the Orioles versus lefties this year. They've had some decent pop, like I mentioned, striking out 21% of the time, which is pretty low. They're not walking a ton, but a 118 WRC plus, 334 on base percentage, 176 ISO. It's not a cakewalk matchup here for Ryu, but there wasn't many great, like, cheaper pitchers today, so I threw him on here just because I don't think he's going to get shelled, but the upside I would say is kind of limited. Patrick Corbin, $7,800. The Miami Marlins absolutely crushed John Lester yesterday, so I'm a little bit concerned of how Patrick Corbin's going to look here, but he's been good the past 2 games, and I know his numbers this season aren't very impressive whatsoever. 5.4 ERA, 4.3 xFIP, 4.6 SIERA, so it's about a run lower than his ERA, which is good, but K rate's still below 20%, walk rate's close to the double-digit range. He is giving up some power this season, and trust me, I've rostered Patrick Corbin here and there this season, and he has gotten shelled a couple times, over a 34% hard contact rate, so you got to be very careful rostering Patrick Corbin, but the Marlins are a soft matchup overall. They are striking out quite a bit versus lefties, near 28% of the time, and only a 139 ISO this season. 2 Dan Woba and 87 WRC plus. So matchup-wise, this is a good spot. Plus, it's a pitcher-friendly park in Miami. It's just, I hate rostering Patrick Corbin. The guy scares the heck out of me, but you factor in the price tag, you factor in the matchup, and you factor in recent form. Past couple games have been very good for Corbin. I think he ends up looking like a decent play on DraftKings today at SP2. Then if you really want to save some money, we have Kenta Maeda, $6,800. Kind of another boring pitcher to roster for DFS purposes because the strikeout rate hasn't really been there this season. Last year it was good. He was sitting above 30%. This season it's dipped around 21%. Still not really walking many guys, but just hasn't been really an exciting roster this season. Plus the Indians don't really strike out a lot. They still have a lower team total at 4.02 here. He is a pretty heavy favorite. Like the Twins a lot today on DraftKings. I think they're one of the better stacks in the entire slate. So if Kenta Maeda can go the 5+ innings, should be able to pick up the win, which would go a long way at $6,800. While his numbers aren't very impressive, like I mentioned, I mean, I still think he's a fine play. The bottom of the Indians lineup does get pretty gross. They're not striking out a lot, kind of like the Pirates, 22% K rate. Not really walking a whole lot. They do have a little bit of power versus righties, 166 team ISO, but I mean, it's pedestrian lineup once you get to the bottom. I mean, yeah, there's some good bats like Cesar Hernandez, Jose Ramirez, you know, the early portions of the lineup. Ahmed Rosario's been playing some good baseball recently. Bobby Bradley's been a nice call-up for the Indians so far. I mean, I don't know why Jake Bauers was starting over him at the beginning of the season, but I still think for the price point, Maeda can be a fine option. But like I said, there's not really a whole lot to like on pitching today. Yeah, we have guys like Lance Lynn, Jacob deGrom, Adam Wainwright, but it's kind of just a, I don't know, this feels like a meh pitching slate, and the bats really aren't that great either outside of the Blue Jays. Like, yeah, there's a couple of decent options, but the Blue Jays definitely stand out above the rest. And that being said, we might as well move on to the bats because that's pretty much it for the pitching. And we'll start with the catcher position. And up top, we have Omar Narvaez, nearly $5,000. I wish he was in Coors Field. I feel like he was cheaper in Coors Field than he is here in Milwaukee, but gets a nice matchup versus Sensatella, and he's been pretty good versus right-handed pitching this season. Overall, this year he's batting .315 with a WOBA near 400 and a 175 ISO and a 147 WRC+. Those numbers improve versus right-handed pitching, and if you want to use anybody versus Sensatella, I know he's a guy that can have a high ground ball rate, especially to righties. You're going to prefer the lefties versus him, so Narvaez, Yelich, and guys like that on the Milwaukee Brewers do grade out pretty well for me today because their team total is pretty high, and it is a hitter-friendly park in Milwaukee. Ryan Jeffers, $3,000. He'll probably end up being the chalk catcher today. Should have a decent spot in the order. But we got Sam Hentges. I think that's how you say his last name, but either way, I'm not expecting him to last long in this game. Twins have a team total above 5 today, and while he doesn't hit for a high batting average, he does have over a 230 ISO this season. He's got some decent pop versus left-handed pitching, so I do like Ryan Jeffers here. Riley Adams, he's a righty. I know that's not showing up in the player info, which I will have to fix, but he's a right-handed catcher for the Toronto Blue Jays. Reese McGuire usually gets the call for righties on the mound, but since it's a lefty and Keegan Aiken, assuming Riley Adams is going to be in the lineup today, and they have a team total north of 6 today, 6.32, so they're definitely the best spot to look for offense today. His numbers look absolutely abysmal this season, a negative 18 WRC+, but it's just trying to get cheap exposure to one of my favorite stacks. Actually, not one of my favorite stacks, my favorite stack on today's slate. Dropping out at first base, we have Vlad, $6,200. I think he's homered 2 days in a row, but it feels like he homers each and every single day. Batting like 350 this year with like a 350 ISO. I mean, the only reason you're not playing Vlad today is if you don't have the money for him, because he is very expensive, $6,200. But if anyone's going to go deep today, it should be Vlad. I mean, tons of power versus lefties. Keegan Aiken's not a very good pitcher. He got crushed last time out, and I want all the Blue Jays that I can handle today. So love Vlad if I got the money for him. And then after Vlad, the thing is, this position's pretty bad today, so I could just see you wanting to spend up for Vlad and try to get some value elsewhere because Do I really want to play Miguel Sano? Do I really want to play Castanheira? Not really. And Freddie Freeman, I mean, yeah, he's in Cincinnati, but I mean, Luis Castillo's been fine of late. I know he's been struggling versus lefties this year, but Vlad just stands out way above the rest. So I could just see myself locking him in and just finding the value elsewhere. But Sano, just a power righty here versus the lefty in Cleveland, although he's going to strike out like half the time. So when you roster him, just know you're probably either getting a homer or a strikeout, which is very frustrating in cash games. And Castanheira, $3,000 recently back on the Brewers. I mean, I know he's been bad this year. He is striking out quite a bit. I don't think it's going to change. But if you're just looking for cheap Brewers exposure with the team total close to 5 here versus Sensatella, I don't hate going there, but I feel like I just want to spend it for Vlad the more I think about it. So I'll try my best to do that. The problem is, I feel like I might spend up a little bit for pitching today, but there are some cheap guys we're going to talk about, so I think we could probably make it work. Dropping at second base, we have Marcus Semien, $5,600. He's been awesome this year, batting around 300 with around a 230-some ISO, 140-something WRC plus, over a 520 slugging, and he's got some speed upside, hits at the top of the order for easily the best stack on the entire slate. Righty on lefty matchup here. Love Marcus Semien. You could also play him at shortstop. Jorge Polanco, $4,300, $1,300 cheaper than Marcus Semien, and he gets a nice righty on lefty matchup here not in Cleveland, but versus Cleveland. Team total above 5 here, and he's been solid this season. Obviously not quite like Marcus Semien, but batting around 260 with close to a 200 ISO. That's fine for his price point. Then Jeff McNeil, $3,200. Not really one to pick on Zach Eflin too much. Plus the New York Mets only have a team total of 4 here, but he's dirt cheap. Leading off here, fine versus righties. 131 ISO this season, 242 batting average. Not great numbers, but don't forget he was out for a little bit. Only has around 100 some plate appearances this season, so it's a smaller sample size. But if I'm going to use anybody versus Eflin, I guess I'd prefer the lefties, and he's struggled the past couple of games. So I just like the price point for Jeff McNeil here in the spot in the batting order. Then dropping out third base, Josh Donaldson, $5,000. This is not a great position today, but we get a nice righty on lefty matchup here. ISO above 200 this season, like the Twins quite a bit, so I think Josh Donaldson makes some sense there. Austin Riley, $3,500. I'm not in love with the Braves today. I thought the team total would be higher than this versus Castillo. I know he's been good as of late, and the strikeouts have been there, but he is a guy that has had his struggles this season. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to deny that. There's been spots where Luis Castillo has definitely been a big letdown, and that could easily happen today. It's just mainly a price thing for me. He hits in a decent spot in the order. He's got power. He hits a lot of fly balls. It's a hitter-friendly park. So if you want to roster Austin Riley, I don't hate it, but I'm not in love with the Braves today. Then Luis Rengifo. I always want to say Renfigo, but lately I found out that the G's before the F. I don't know why that slid by me, but Luis Rengifo, I'm not sure if it's silent. Either way, he is absolutely free, $2,000, and yesterday he hit second, assuming that's going to happen today here. Going to be lefty on the mound, but he is a switch hitter, so he's always going to have the platoon advantage there. It doesn't have much of a sample size this season, so we really can't look into it, but if you want to roster expensive pitchers today and fit in Vlad, Luis Rengifo is the way to make that happen today. Then dropping out a shortstop, we have Bo Bichette, $6,000 for obvious reasons. You can use all the Blue Jays here versus Keegan Aiken, Willie Adames, I can never remember. I'm sorry, but $4,700 is a bit expensive, but it's a hitter-friendly park. Antonio Sensatella, not a very good pitcher. Team total close to 5 here. If they can get Sensatella out of this game early on, the Rockies bullpen is not very good at all. One of the worst team XFIPs in the entire league. So definitely do not mind the Brewers stack today. Then Andrelton Simmons, $2,600, just a dirt cheap righty here versus the lefty in Cleveland. I do like this twin stack quite a bit today. Dropping out of the outfield, again, another twin here. Nelson Cruz, $5,100, some of the most power in the league versus left-handed pitching over the course of his career, batting 300 this season with a 256 ISO. And if we look specifically versus lefties for Nelson Cruz, so far this year it's not quite as good as it was in the past, but these are still really good numbers. 274 ISO, 370 batting average, 451 WOBA. I think that's just a testament to show exactly how good Nelson Cruz has been versus lefties. When I look at these numbers, I'm like, not quite as good in the past for Nelson Cruz, but still pretty darn good, which those are like super elite numbers. So we got the money for Cruz, like him quite a bit. We have a slew of Toronto Blue Jays outfielders here. We got 3 in a row. We have Teoscar Hernandez, Randall Grichuk, George Springer, all are excellent options. George Springer went deep yesterday, and if I had to pick one guy here, George Springer would be my favorite play just because he's the cheapest, and obviously he's a tremendous hitter, and I don't think there's any reason for him to be $1,000 cheaper than Teoscar Hernandez. So if you want to play all 3, go ahead. They're all fairly priced, I would say. Hernandez is close to 5K, but you shouldn't. I mean, you should be able to fit in all 3 of these guys. So if you want to do that, by all means, go for it. But all are very good plays. Michael Conforto, $3,500, cheap lefty power versus Zach Eflin. Then Trevor Larnach, $2,700. Would prefer if there was a righty on the mound for Cleveland because I don't love lefty on lefty matchups here, but he should be fine. If he is batting cleanup, just get exposure to the Twins. Like, I don't think he's going to last too long anyway, so he should see a righty at some point. I like that price point. And it's just a way to make things work on a good offense. But with that being said, guys, I think that'll be it for the video. So I hope it was helpful, and if it was, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like I said, I got NASCAR content coming out today and tomorrow because we have a doubleheader this weekend, so I will be very busy. So if you want to check it out, I'll be doing a live stream this afternoon Eastern time. And then we have the preview video that I already posted, and you can join my DraftKings contest that I host each and every single week. You can get a shout on the channel, and you can win some money as well. So check it out if you want. Follow me over on social media if you haven't already. Leave a like on the video. And if you want to help support the channel over on Patreon, link is down below for that. And you can get this week free if you sign up, then continue through July. But yeah, I think that'll be pretty much it. Hope you guys enjoy the start to your weekend, and I'll see you guys in the next video.